All right, let's get over to another quick favorite tool of mine, and that's using your brain and seeing the simple. All right, we call this a support and resistance lesson. And in this, I'm going to share with you some very powerful mentalities behind trading. Right? Let's get over there and do that right now. I used this sheet earlier to show you, but really, the most simplest thing that you can use to trade is your own mind. Why? Because you can see, humans are meant to see patterns, right? Overall, if I bring this back to a 15-minute chart, I mean, besides the NFP, that looks crazy, right? And if I come back and have a macro look at this, you can't really tell. I mean, you get ups and you got downs, but you can see them, right? Some of you can see the pattern here. You're not looking for the secret, you're just looking for the pattern. And the pattern is not the overall pattern. It's in the chunk of your time. So if I isolated this time period right here, I came in just a little bit. Let me go back and find that. Okay. Isolate this. Okay. What's the direction of this market? Anybody tell me? If you're looking at this market, you're seeing that it's a downtrend, right? And that this whole pattern looks like a wave, right? And what's the thing about a wave? It's got ups and downs, right? So what we need to do is find the ups and the downs, and those represent lines in our world. Now, with the NFP, it's kind of crazy, right? But once a day, you can simply come in, you take a day chart, you hit D1. Now, you don't want to set stuff way too far back, right? So you don't need to kind of come in and go, all right, I need to set a line here, I need to set a line here, okay? Because it's not even close to your market, right, on the D1. Your market and your market time is right around this area. So what I'm going to do is come in at least once a day and just to verify them on each chart, you could do it. And if you're not predetermining your support and resistance lines daily, you are missing out on protecting yourself and the information. So research and development of your own trading style is very powerful. So normally I find a high and a low. Now, also keep in mind that support and resistance lines are about ranging. So the line, if you will, is speculative. It's usually a range in between some things, okay? So it can hit multiple places, but it might be at the top. I mean, if I double click that, it might be at the top of a wick that it kind of meets up better with other things. Look, see, like right here, kind of in here with this range, because this whole amount's ranging at that level. And then boom, becomes a hard line right there, right? Same thing with this lower one. If I bring this down to here, on the bar, close to the bar, on the bar. Got it? So if you keep that in mind, you got a top and a bottom on the D1. Now, if you find something in the middle, you know, what's working out in the middle? And if you see, you can look back to that date. Nothing really here, except for that one right there, that little tiny bar right there that kind of touches it perfect. And here, this one's still ranging out, doesn't really get to it, but right here, perfect. So I come down to the hour, and now I'm in my time. I'm in my time frame, right? I want to be as close to my time frame as possible. And look at this: a touch, a touch, a touch. And what did that take me? 10 seconds. And this is one big line right now happening. Okay? You had news that affected it, but now where will it go? And you'll watch it. Now that you're on the hour trade, you could do the same thing again. This one's the D level, right? You can change the color of your lines, and it's real easy. So you can make your, if you got to double click it and then right click horizontal line properties, you could change it to any color you want, and thickness and all that stuff. But the idea here too is that if you do change it, you know, you got to change it each time. It's a pain in the butt. Okay. So in your time frame, again, this is on an hour, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so many hours back, right? You don't want to go back 50 days. I'm going to grab maybe a midline. I'm going to grab a low line because it's not even going to get close to that point, right? And then I might grab, another mid-high line in there. What works really good. Is that something that's unusual, or is that better? This one's kind of better right here because it touches here and here. That's all you're really looking for. Now, if you break down to the 15 minutes, you start looking at those lines, it starts making sense, right? Okay, still with me? You guys all still awake? Okay. But this idea of using just a simple blank sheet on your MetaTrader 4 and using your support lines can tell you a lot. One thing that I'll give you is a little hint. Each one of these becomes, if it's on the bottom, it's referred to as a support line, and if it's on the top, if this is on the bottom and hits the bottom, it's a support line. If it comes up to the top and it bounces off, it's called a resistance. Every line can be support or resistance at one time or another. And what happens is that if this comes down and then penetrates like it did here, it turns from a resistance to a support. And a very large amount of the time, as soon as it does penetrate, at one time or another, it will come back and test it, puncture it, push it, pass it, return back over it. It'll do something to it. It will come back to it somehow. Now let me show you. Let's go back and look at a couple of these. Punctures through it, comes back. Tests it again. And even on this bar, it tests it again and then returns. And it pushes back through. It tests it. Okay? Are you seeing this? Now, this one took a little longer, but punctured it, came back through, went up another deviation, came back and hit it again. Do you see that? So even though you may miss it here, this bar pushes it, this bar tests it immediately. Got it? Breaks through it, comes back, tests it with this bar, and then continues to test it till it breaks through again. When you see this happen, when you see one hit it on 3 or 4 times, something's going to happen. Of course, it's either going to go way up or it's going to go way down at that point. But you start noticing that trend, right? Test it, punctures it, comes back to it. Simple stuff, right? And how long did that take me to analyze that? Now let me show you really, what mine look like from this point. These are my support and resistance lines. Right? They look like a lot, right? Because my chart's scary. But at these points, I'm able to figure out when things bounce off and where they go. When I say there's a major resistance line happening at 111.05, look at it. That's pretty major. It punctured it, came back, tested it, hit it, came close to it, and kept on bouncing off. All right. Here endeth the lesson with SRs. But support and resistance lines become a very powerful trend for you, especially when when a direction comes off and a signal gets fired. You can say, I mean, if this is if you have a SR up, if you have a support here, an SR or SR down here, it doesn't matter, and you're coming out here and the signal fires off for a sell, there's plenty of room from here to here for it to maneuver. Right? But if it, let me see if I can do this, Jen. But if it fired off here for a sell, you might be a little skeptical. Why? Because you got a major line happening here right now. If this is like a D1 or, day one or an hour or a 15-minute one, you might have an issue with this one. Okay? So we know, when you've seen me say in Max Lives too, that if it finishes under a particular number, we should be okay. But if it doesn't, we might have a little problem. Because if we say that the sell comes out there and it finishes underneath this number, right? When I mean finishes, it means it closes over that number, not just penetrates it, but finishes over it. Why does that line now represent goodness to us for the process? Can anybody answer that? Why does that line mean that we're going to be okay for a little bit? Yeah, it could bounce, but this becomes, because this was a support line, but it becomes now a resistance line. And so what normally happens on the resistance is that it comes back up and touches it and bounces off it again, right? And that's what I tell most people. Once it penetrates that, it becomes a support of a shield to you. Now, if it didn't do that, right? If we called for a sell and it didn't do that, and it penetrated down and then it's kind of came back up and closed up here, right? And this is a support line, and then our strike is right here. I say we normally would have problems because it's going to test this line. Okay, it's going to try to come back up to test this, so we could have a small issue. Are you getting it now? Are you seeing the big picture on why support and resistance is so powerful? Has anybody seen the relationship with the binary on support and resistance? Two most things I always say to everybody, the entire market could be brought down to two things: time and price, right? Time and price, support and resistance. Sell, buy. Crazy, right? For everybody else that wants to stick around and ask questions or just hang out to the end, absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for everybody who made this possible. I am only moments away from my big fish.